We want our children to grow into happy, resilient, and emotionally and mentally healthy adults. But how do we promote our own well-being on a day-to-day basis to show them what that looks like? Neuroscience shows us that our brains, both young and old, can narrow down 7 key daily habits for optimizing brain matter and creating well-being. I'll walk you through these essential habits, with some being common sense and others not so much, and I'll reveal the one that's most frequently missed, but it can transform the way you relate to and understand your child and yourself. Welcome to the Bread Therapy Baking Show. I'm Daniel, a professional therapist and hobby baker. Today we're making Swedish Semlor and talking about the Healthy Mind Platter. The Healthy Mind Platter comes from Dr. Dan Seigel and essentially models after the My Plate setup, where you see a plate and there's different portions of types of food that are ideal, and you want to get so many servings in a day, like your grains, your carbs, your protein, your veggies, etc. So if you imagine a plate with 7 daily essential mental activities to optimize brain matter and create well-being. As I mentioned, some of them are common sense. He writes, sleep time. When we give the brain the rest it needs, we consolidate learning and recover from the experiences of the day. Downtime. When we are non-focused, without any specific goal, and let our mind simply wander or relax, we help the brain recharge. Now, downtime can be a perspective shift at times for parents, because sometimes we might wonder what our child is doing or thinking about, that they're staring off into space. But if you can allow yourself some patience to note to yourself, okay, this is good for their brain, let me give them some time to just let their mind wander. And for yourself as well, letting your own mind wander or simply relax is an important task that, as busy people and busy parents, you might forget about. Focus time is when we closely focus on a task in a goal-oriented way. We take on new challenges that can make deep connections in the brain. Now, you might say my child gets a little bit of that through doing homework or at school, but adding other tasks that might have a goal at the end could be helpful, and even things you can do together, such as Legos or trying to build something or trying to discover something new. Playtime is when we allow ourselves to be spontaneous or creative, playfully enjoying novel experiences. And that, again, helps make new connections in the brain. And playtime is so important, especially for kids, but also important for adults, to be able to be spontaneous and creative. It's not something we often think about. But as maybe you've observed, schools in general are focusing more on academic work and less on playtime. So this is one that might be harder to find naturally throughout the day, and you might almost have to block out time or space for your child to just play. Physical time, when we move our bodies aerobically, if possible. We strengthen the brain in many ways. And that one, again, maybe a little bit common sense, but making sure that we're doing that for the optimization of our brain. And connecting time is when we connect to other people, ideally in person, or when we take time to appreciate our connection to the natural world around us. We activate and reinforce the brain's relational circuitry. And so this one could be time out in nature, time together playing a game. So this could be going for a hike, playing some type of game with your child is always recommended. Something like watching a movie together could be good. It's a little bit more passive connecting, but something where you can spend some time and talk is ideal for their brain. And the last one that might be frequently forgotten about is time in. He says when we quietly reflect internally, focusing on sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts, we help to better integrate the brain. And I mentioned this one is important because I think in a day-to-day life, I often see kids, teens, and even adults who, and if I'm honest, myself included, but who are often distracted throughout their days. And so just thinking about how much time do you give yourself to just think, to just notice what's happening in your mind or in your body, and just be with your thoughts. A lot of people spend most of their downtime or free time watching something, looking on their phone, or even if they are going for a walk, might be listening to music. So there's always something happening, something stimulating. And I mentioned this one could really help you connect, especially with your child, helping them understand how to sift through these sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. An example I have from my clinical practice, and I'll change some details here, but we'll say a young 7-year-old boy went over this healthy mind platter, and I asked him to take a minute, close his eyes, and just focus internally on any feelings he had or any thoughts or if any pictures came to his mind. And after a few minutes, he said he had a picture of his cat come to his mind. And I said, "Oh, tell me about the cat." And he mentioned that the cat had died 3 months ago, which kind of surprised me because he hadn't talked about it in any of the previous times we had met. And eventually he didn't want to talk about it much more. As he kind of teared up thinking about this cat, he was still really in this grieving process. And when we brought his mom into the end of the session to kind of go over this healthy mind platter, he had mentioned to her that, yeah, he had a picture of the cat come up in his mind, and she seemed almost surprised, like she had kind of forgotten about the fact that the cat died recently, like, oh, that felt so long ago, or yeah, I didn't even think about how he might have been grieving that. I didn't know how much he understood about death. And so it was an opening for them to really connect and open that conversation again. So I often recommend practicing or prompting your child for the time in, maybe as you're getting ready for bed. And sometimes it might be just whatever. I've had times where my daughter says, "Oh, I've got a picture of a unicorn eating waffles," and that's fine, but just want to open the conversation and begin teaching our children how to practice this time in for the better optimization of their brain and mental health. In my next videos, we're going to shift to a series about relationships, romantic, dating, married. And so yeah, hit subscribe if that's something you're interested in as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time.